All right, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining us for our 5G LGE track info session for our open call. Today we have pretty full agenda for you all. We're going to provide a lot of information about the history of the 5G studio and introduce both our studio partner Verizon as well as our collaboration partner LGE, who will be helping us and working with us on running the pilots later this year. Before we hop into the slides and the information, I want to take a moment just to remind you that if you have any questions, and encourage you, of course, if you have any questions, feel free to submit them during the session through the Q&A button. We will try to answer those either live on the panel or through the chat. Instead, feel free to submit any question you see fit. Before I give you the introduction on NewLab and so on, I wanted to introduce also the other panelists that we'll have with us today. Rachel and Dave, please take a moment to introduce yourself.
I guess I'll go first. Hey everyone, thanks for joining us today. I'm Rachel Jarrett, part of Verizon's new business incubation team, where I lead our ecosystem growth and new initiatives. Excited to be on the line and answer any questions around the 5G Studio program. So thanks for joining.
Hey, I'm Dave Olson, Senior Director out of LG's Emerging Technology Lab in Santa Clara, and currently working on private 5G initiatives and the transformative technologies and where we can take it in our company.
Awesome, and I realize I haven't necessarily introduced myself. So my name is Omri Adman. I'm the Senior Program Manager for the 5G Studio, part of the NewLab Products and Programs team. I've been running this studio since 2020 in collaboration with Rachel, and we are very, very excited to have LGE join us as our first studio collaborator to run our first dedicated track, but we'll get to that very shortly. For those of you who are not necessarily quite familiar with NewLab, we are based in Brooklyn, New York, as part of the Brooklyn Navy Yard's 300-acre campus. The office that you see now is our own office at NewLab. We host over 200 companies who come in and work and take advantage of our membership offering, which has prototyping labs such as 3D printing, wooden metal shops, electric shops, and other ones that really allows you to all the tools that you need in order to build your first product. We also will happily introduce you to our network and into our membership team. NewLab in 2015, quickly after our expansion, we started working on several kind of product lines. Currently, we have 4. I introduced our membership, but very quickly, we have investment, venture studio, and innovation studio. Before we hop into the innovation studio, a couple of the investment, we have our own syndicate fund, where we bring together angel investors to invest in early stage companies that we've been able to de-risk through our innovation studio and our member companies, as well as a venture studio where we build companies from the ground up. We work with early stage entrepreneurs who have interesting ideas in immersive tech, in emerging tech, to solve in the market based on market needs that we hear from our corporate clients or from our community. And we work with those entrepreneurs to build a company, move them through the necessary stages into a growth stage company. The innovation studio is currently our largest product. And here we focus really on working with, thank you, Emily, on working with Fortune 500 companies and large corporations on solving the biggest challenges that they're facing in their market. We have over 50 partners. We run over 15 innovation studios to date. The goal is really to immerse ourselves and to work very close or forward in the mobility studio. We have energy Department of Transportation and Department of Energy in the city of New York, studio with a corporate client based in India, and other ones. Well, happy to kind of dive into to all of them or answer any questions offline afterwards. To date, we've made more than 20 investments through our SBP fund, and we've built over four companies and building more every year. As I mentioned in the beginning, we have about 250 companies and more and growing in our HQ office in New York, as well as in our second location that is based in Michigan through our collaboration with Michigan to turn Detroit into a more vibrant innovation center as well. Next slide, please. Wonderful. But for those of you who are already familiar with NuLab, or now that we are all familiar with it, we can jump more into the 5G studio and the reason why we had you guys join us today. So the 5G studio has started in 2020. It's a collaboration between NuLab and Verizon, where we're looking for early stage companies and advanced technology that can make best use of 5G and can leverage the 5G technology and the 5G radio and network that we have on site to address the biggest challenges that are in various industries that companies are facing today. Before we hand it off to Rachel to kind of walk us through what 5G means for the industries, I would again like to emphasize that LGE has joined us as our first 5G studio partner, and we're looking to enable smart factories and improve user experience in stadium through the collaboration with them. Next slide, please. And another one. Wonderful. So quickly, just to kind of walk you through the work that we have done to date at the 5G studio. As I mentioned, we started in February 2020. Few months after Verizon has put in place a 5G network indoors at NuLab in the offices that you've seen before, as well in order to enable the testing that we are running through from the studio. We ran our first cohort in October of 2020, our second cohort in May of 2021, our third cohort in October of 2021, and we just recently finished our fourth cohort and overall piloted 23 companies across various industries, specifically in manufacturing, industrial automation, transportation. I'll hand it over to Rachel, who can introduce Verizon strategy as well as NBI strategy, the team that she's part of.
All right, hello everyone. Thank you for joining again. I think we can go back to the previous slide. So let's talk a little bit about 5G. If you're on this call, you've probably given some thought to 5G, even potentially seen some 5G bars on your phone. So what is 5G? 5G is the 5th generation of wireless technology. When we think about 5G, it often helps to think about what came before 5G, just to put some context into what makes 5G so special. So if we think about 1G, that gave us voice-only capabilities. And I don't know, maybe some people on the line remember the world of 1G. When we think about 2G, that gave us really short messages. So the TTYL and BRB messages that we sent through clunky phones. 3G gave us network speeds that were just good enough for some basic internet. And again, if anyone was around for that, it was very, very basic and very slow internet access. 4G really enabled a lot of brand new applications and many applications that we know and use and love. So if you think of apps like Uber or Netflix or most of the applications on your phone, those were all enabled by the 4G network. 5G is something brand new and something altogether different from the previous generations. When we think about 5G, it's giving us much faster speeds, ultra low latency. So that means that the time that it takes to get something from your phone back to the server and back, is going to be super low latency and massive capacity. So we can connect hundreds of devices in just one small space, and they're not all fighting for bandwidth. So we're super excited about all that's possible on 5G, and are using this program with New Lab to start to realize a lot of those applications and bringing things from the future into the now. A little bit about our team. So Verizon's new business incubation team sits within corporate strategy. We're tasked with scaling new automation businesses that are fueled by the inherent orchestration power of 5G. So we're a team of builders, and we're building solutions in sensor intelligence, location technology, industrial IoT, robotics. You may have even come across some of our work through various industry initiatives. Our collaboration with New Lab and now with LG is a super exciting opportunity for us to not only be building our own technology, but to work alongside super innovative startups that are building in similar spaces to we are. So this the studio is really great time for us to work alongside a lot of the people on the line today, and a lot of people who might have not been able to join. And we're excited to be recruiting for our 5th cohort, and to be doing that alongside LG. So going to hand back to Omri, and excited to open up for a Q&A at the end of this.
Thank you so much, Rachel. And we really want to thank Verizon again for being a really wonderful partner throughout those couple of years, getting us to where we are today. 23 pilots don't go easily. Before we hand it over to Dave to introduce LGE and their strategy, as I mentioned in the beginning and throughout, this is the first time we have a industry partner who's providing input on their own use cases and challenges, pain, opportunity that they see in their respective market. In order to get to today, which is where you see here in the middle, the convene, we went through a couple of stages ahead of, for the past 4 months, working closely with LG Electronics, their innovation team, and their CTO office based in Seoul, Korea. We went through a series of workshops to kick off to understand really what is the strategic focus for the studio for this year. We aligned on a couple that Dave is soon gonna share with you. From there, we moved into a very deep research that included both an ecosystem research, looking into companies, into solutions that are available today, as well as a generative research, understanding what are the solutions that are available today in the market, but also what are the solutions of the future in smart manufacturing and in stadium. The input that we've gathered through the research and the collaborative work with Verizon or NBI, as well as with LGE, has led us to recruit specific companies and to reach out to companies that can answer those. And that's where we are today, the convene stage. That's where we look at companies. We encourage you to apply through the open call, submit a quick application in order to be considered to pilot with us. The idea of piloting will take place later in the year, and I'll kind of walk you at the end of it through our timeline for the rest of the year. But just to understand, a pilot will be at New Lab, and the idea is to follow in the pilot to form a partnership between a startup, Verizon, and LGE. Now, without further ado, I want to hand it over to Dave, who would kind of walk us through why is LGE interested in working with New Lab and Verizon around the studio.
Thanks, Omri. So as previously mentioned, I work with the LG Emerging Technology Lab, and that's part of the office of the CTO from LG Electronics. Now, LG is a huge behemoth of a company that goes far beyond just LG Electronics, although LG Electronics is the largest division within LG. And in looking at areas that we could apply, private 5G technologies and 5G technologies, we really had to go through a huge exercise to focus, because the truth is that it can affect almost every market area we're in. And over the years, I'm sure will affect almost every market that we're in. And, coming into the smart factory area, it may not seem obvious on the surface, but, we have over 200 factories worldwide just focused on television, screen, everything it takes to develop, to deliver 60 million TVs to the market every year. And so we've got hundreds of factories worldwide and all kinds of, pain points there, and of a large engineering division in our HQ that is solely focused on smart factory and on improving factory efficiency. So, we see 5G as a transformative technology to be able to do things different in our factories. And the interesting thing is we're our own best customer in smart factories. We do provide services to others, but with the number of factories that LG has, we are our own best customer. So some of the areas that we've kind of focused on, the main theme here is flexible workflow. LG makes hundreds of products. LG, limited number of factories, factory reconfiguration and factory flexibility is a huge pain point and a huge issue that we think really lends itself well to, 5G. And we're looking for, when we say we're looking for solutions in this area, we think 5G is transformative. And so, hey, I've got a sensor, let me throw a 5G radio onto it, is not transformative. But there's new ways of doing things using 5G and the MEC and other technologies associated with 5G that we think really will transform the smart factory. So some of the focus areas there and the pain points that we've had, are smart sensors for predictive maintenance and quality assurance, robotic arms and items for picking and placing across conveyor belts. And robotics arms have been around a long time, but we think there's going to be a change coming with the new technologies. And then the other area is AMRs and HEVs for inventory retrieval and tugging. Moving things around a factory is always a huge pain point. Let's go to the next slide. One other area that, again, a huge part of LG and a huge part of LG Electronics that is hidden a little bit is the business-to-business relationships we have. And we decided to pick a very specific focus area. This is obviously just one of many possible areas, but our smart stadium business and where we could grow that business using new technologies and 5G technologies. And so we're looking for areas in advanced cameras for enhanced fan experience and broadcasting and sensors. How do we do non-intrusive crowd control and safety and security in a more intelligent way by combining AI and 5G? And then also just the whole fan experience. Are there areas where we can really improve the fan experience and get the fan more engaged in the event by using these technologies and really do fan-facing kind of applications? The interesting thing about this is that in Korea, LG actually owns a basketball team and a baseball team. So there is actually sort of a personal interest for LG to improve this experience and to look at innovative solutions in this area that can improve the fan experience and improve the overall safety and other issues we have with smart stadiums. And back to you, Omri.
Wonderful. Before, thank you. Before I jump into the timeline, it's really crucial. I think what Dave has said. The vast business that LG has. It touches so many different industries. We've focused on these two because we want to be able to go deeper. But of course, we'll be looking in the future into other ones as smart venues, hotels, hospitality, logistics, and so on. Encourage companies from across the board to apply and to talk to us. And even if you offer a solution that kind of fits between the smart factories and the predictive maintenance / quality assurance, or you're more on the retasking in real time and low code to no code, and there are a lot of interesting solutions there. And then we'll love obviously to see your application, and you'll definitely be considered. Now to into the timeline that we have in front of us. So as I said a bit earlier on, we launched the track back in March, went through the generative and ecosystem research in May until basically the end of June, and started our startup recruiting through an open call in middle of June. The startup recruiting and the open call would end on July 21st. We encourage you to apply until then. Reach out, have office hours, and talk to companies all the time. Following that, we'll do internal reviews where we look at each application, score it, review it among ourselves, LG, Verizon, and LGE HQ to best decide who are the top companies and the top solutions that are relevant for 2022 and for the upcoming cohort. We're looking to then execute the cohort and the pilots in mid to late October at NewLab in New York City, where we have the existing 5G network infrastructure. And from there, we'll move into private showcase and a public showcase early in 2023. There are a bunch of questions I see coming in from the Q&A. So just to hop into a few of those, and I think we can go to the next slide. Cool. So before we hop into those, again, application ends on July 21st. This is the email for the studio. Feel free to reach out with any questions, or if you would like to set up some times for us to chat one-on-one about the relevancy and about the fit of your solutions. Now to add Rachel and Dave to the conversation. Would love to get your faces up here with me. Wonderful. So we have currently 6 questions. I'll start with the first one, but I would love, Rachel, also afterwards, if you can chime in following my answer. So the first question is, what is the process for startup selection? As I mentioned like in our previous slide, we look at each company individually and understanding which solution best fit. The selection process looks at how does a company answers the best in the best way the needs for LGE currently. What I would love, Rachel, to kind of help us understand is also how Verizon is looking at the companies from a 5G perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I think it makes sense to also get Dave's perspective on this. But from a 5G perspective, and that's what's exciting about this cohort, is we get to get NewLab's vision, LG's vision, and the Verizon vision all in one. So when we think about an application, what we're really looking for is something that is being done that's brand new on 5G. So Dave touched a little bit on this before, but we're not looking for you to just come in, connect a device to 5G and call it a day. We're looking for you to test something brand new that you couldn't do, without 5G, that you are able to do over 5G. So whether that's moving compute to an edge server and using the really ultra low latency of 5G to, have processing happen off of the device, whether it's the density of devices that you're looking to test. So really it depends on the application around like what exactly makes sense, but we are looking for you to test something brand new. And that's really, part of the criteria for from the Verizon end.
Right. And if you want me to chime in, I'm just going to kind of reiterate what Rachel said, which is exactly right. If we're just attaching 5G to something, that's not, what we're looking for, because that's something we can do. But we believe there's innovative solutions and ways to cut cost and increase factory flexibility and really do things in a new way with 5G, because there are capabilities that just have not been in the factory before. You can't take Wi-Fi and do the same things that you can do with 5G. And obviously hardwiring things does all kinds of other limitations. So what can we do differently that really increases our factory productivity, our flexibility in our factory, and how we do things? And, we think those solutions are out there, and we think that, we're not smart enough to think of them all, and we're really looking for, smart people to tell us the right answers and really innovate around this area and what we can move into our ecosystem.
Yeah, perfect. And now that we understand the professional mind frame and the reasons. The following, as I said, the open call and the application process, there will be a proposal process that us, the three teams, Verizon, LGE, and NewLab, would look into applying those methods that you just heard from Rachel and Dave, and the same kind of ideas of this is innovative, this makes good use of 5G, this is relevant for the focus areas, and we'll take those into consideration, move from there into a pretty quick contracting, and then into a pilot. One of the questions that came up through the chat is how long is the pilot? We are really looking at this as a two-phase approach. The first pilot in October is about a week at NewLab. Prior to that week, it takes a few weeks to upload the application and to work with the Verizon and LGE network team, the Verizon network team and the LGE product team to make sure that we are making best use of MEC 5G and the LGE hardware. And a week at NewLab to run the result, to run the tests, to run the pilots. And that's kind of like the first POC. From there, we are hoping to successful pilots to start iterating and creating a second phase, which will be a longer deployment and a longer pilot at an LGE site. And those would be depending on the results of the first stage. So we're going to de-risk, we're going to work together, and you're going to have full visibility into the LG and Verizon team in order for longer and better deployment later on. A couple of interesting questions that came up, and I think they are pretty connected. One of them is, are there limits to who can participate? And the other one is, if companies are outside the focus area of smart warehouse and smart arenas, should they not apply? The answer is no. We should. There are no limits except for if the company is public, or I believe that's basically it. International companies are encouraged to apply. Early stage, later stage companies are also encouraged to apply. Each one can bring different things to the table. In terms of if companies are outside the focus area of smart warehouse and smart arenas should apply, again, no. We are looking to a lot of times, a lot of the research that we've done showed us that there is cross-pollination between industries. And even though your application maybe in your mind doesn't fit specifically into what we've mentioned, or we haven't mentioned the word that is relevant for you, it doesn't mean that we haven't thought about it, and it doesn't mean that we won't think about it. A lot of time, and what they've mentioned is we want to see what's out there. Right? We want to learn and be able to learn from the industry on the solutions that are viable, and we might have not encountered them. It's possible that a new kind of AMR is out there that we haven't encountered, and that's exactly the kind of AMR or sensor that can answer the needs that Dave and the team in LGE has been thinking about. So we encourage you to apply. Again, we also look at those applications, and if there is no fit for this cohort, we use a lot of the knowledge for future cohorts in 2023 and beyond. This is a long-term engagement between us, Verizon, and LGE that will hopefully lead to more and more pilots. So if we see now that there is an interesting application that's not relevant for cohort 5, maybe it will be relevant for cohort 6, and we can come back to you and learn more. Anything on that end, Rachel, Dave, that I've forgot to mention?
No, I think you covered it all. Definitely, we encourage companies to apply, even if you're not, you don't think of yourself exactly as a fit. And yeah, that's it.
Yeah, exactly. When we look through all the areas, there is cross-pollination in so many different areas that LG is involved with. And just because you're in an area that is not specifically smart stadium or smart factory, it's highly likely that your technology may fit there, or because there's so many open areas there.
Yeah, and that goes also to Jonathan questions regarding Smart Stadium. If I can please give use case of security and safety. I know Jonathan is running is the CEO of AD Night, which tracks and help track movement of different items and connected devices for logistic purposes, for safety and security, for queue monitoring, and so on. Some of the use cases for safety and security, Dave, do you want to touch the specific ones, or I can?
So that's a fairly broad area, but with the world we live in, it's unfortunate, but safety and security are becoming a much larger issue in stadiums, and everything from crowd movement to possible threat assessments are certainly in scope. And how do you monitor how do you monitor the fans? How do you monitor any threat assessments? How do you make sure security is in place and in a least intrusive way as possible? So I mean, if you want specific use cases, that's kind of what we've thought about of threat assessment and crowd monitoring in a remote way, and in a way that is smarter than what is currently being done today.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
less intrusive to the fans.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jonathan, I think your actually solution fits great, right? It's so non-intrusive and help us understand really where crowds are moving, how they move around the stadium, what goes in and what goes out of a stadium, all these things that are so complicated, but could become much easier with technology such as yours or different advanced technologies. What does a pilot look like? I think I touched a bit on that before, but basically, prior to arriving at NULAB, we have at NULAB a mobile edge compute and a 5G network is a private network that all the processing and the application has to happen on that compute in order for you to be able to access the 5G network. So the first stage of the pilot, beyond just like finding the use case and all that, is really to deploy your application on a VM that the Verizon team would open on the Mac, and then arriving at NULAB with your equipment, will provide you the 5G equipment to connect to the 5G network. But we expect you to provide your equipment, your hardware, your software, whatever it may be, in order to run the tests that are relevant for LGE, right? So the use case that we've aligned on, let's say, tagging and moving inventory from one side of the NULAB warehouse to another. You'll bring your AMR. We can provide you the boxes, obviously, but that's the use case that LG is interested in. With the power of 5G, we would want to see how does 5G improve your latency, your data throughput, your mobility, the consistency, consistent movement across the warehouse, and of course, how do those fit to the LGE use cases. Throughout the week of the pilot, we have several touch points where we work with the Verizon team and the LGE team to make sure, and of course the NULAB team, to make sure that everything that you wanted to test has been proven successful and you've reached the KPIs that you've put forward. In addition, we have a videographer and a photographer to make the to still build some marketing power behind this as well. Is there funding for participating teams? Yes, absolutely. We can provide up to 25K in funding for each team. Some teams request less, more, which based on the budget that you require. That budget is for hard costs, so travel costs, development time, stuff like that, team time. It's not so much for purchasing your hardware or listing a software or something like that. So it's really to cover expenses associated with the pilot, and that's for the first POC. When we align on a partnership later on down the line, there is a separate budget for that, but for the October budget, the answer is yes. Cool. And then what are some past results from pilots, examples for further engagement? As this is the first time we're working with LG on this, I will take this to Rachel, who can hopefully chime in on some information from the Verizon side. I would just, before handing over, I would just say, for one of the questions before was, should companies outside the focus area should apply? The answer again is yes, and the examples are here. Fermata was originally from an area of focus that we haven't necessarily considered, and I think Rachel can chime in on the work that we've done with them.
Yeah, so in terms of, what are some results from pilots? I think the results are really the work that's done within the program. So the testing that you do over 5G in the mobile edge compute, I think, like the number one requirement for anyone participating in this program is that they, putting everything else aside, really want to test their application over 5G and MEC and really believe that 5G and MEC are going to improve their applications. So in terms of what can happen after the program, I think there are a bunch of different opportunities. It's hard to, guarantee any one of them, and it's hard to even list all of them because there can be so many. But we've continued to engage with many of the companies from the previous cohort for anything from, bringing these solutions to our own customers at Verizon, or to bringing these solutions to our own Verizon operations. I'm sure, Dave would have similar outcomes from the LG side where, successful studio participants might be brought into LG factories. So I think, there are many outcomes. We don't know what they can be until we see what the participation and, what the results were like in the program itself. But we've been very excited by some of the previous outcomes that we've seen.
Yeah, and let me ask you, Dave, kind of like building up on that, what is a successful pilot look like from your end?
Well, we're in this to find long-term partners and find people that can add value to our factories and to our, factory services that we supply to other companies. So really a successful partnership or a successful pilot would, end out in a long-term partnership. And that's really what we're looking for. We're doing this to find new technologies that we can include in our specific factories and in our portfolio of things that we work with others on. So, I mean, much like what Rachel said, I think that, we're looking for solutions that have legs that we can, and companies that we can work with in a long-term engagement.
Wonderful. Yeah. It's extremely exciting moment for the studio and for NewLab in general. I think bringing together two massively successful organizations such as Verizon from one end and LG from the other is really a great honor, and it's really fun, and it's a really fun, great project to work on. If there aren't any other questions, I would like to thank our two panelists. Dave, thank you for presenting LGE and for all the hard work that you've been putting into this throughout the year and throughout the research and kind of helping us navigate LGE through this process. And of course, Rachel, for the continuous support and unparalleled support that we received from Verizon, both on this and the previous pilots that we've run. Thank you again, and thank you for joining us. Feel free to submit any questions to the email here, and please don't forget to submit an application by July 21st.